If you're a filmmaker who's just starting out and you want to know how the pros get their shots and their subjects looking absolutely amazing, then this is the video for you because I'm going to show you how they do it. Welcome to Valiant Visionary Studios, the only place on YouTube where you can learn the art of filmmaking made simple. Today's video is all about the super simple but very effective 3-point lighting technique that all the pros use to get their shots and their subjects looking absolutely amazing on camera. If you've somehow stumbled across my channel in your travels across the YouTube multiverse, then welcome. My name is Michael, and I'm basically here to teach you the art of filmmaking made simple. I said that already, but I figured it was worth repeating in case you forgot. Do yourself a solid and level up your creative and filmmaking skills by subscribing to the channel and clicking that little bell icon so that way you don't miss anything from the studio. I hate super long YouTube intros, so let's cut the chit chat and grab a pen, paper, or whatever you use to take notes and get ready because school's in session. To really illustrate the effectiveness of the 3-point lighting setup and to give you a better visual representation of what the setup looks like in action, we're going to go to our model for the day. Me! The key light is going to be the main light source in your scene, and it's also going to be the brightest. The key light is usually placed at a 45-degree angle to the left or to the right of your subject, and placing it at this angle creates a nice sense of depth, contour, and contrast, as well as overall dimension to your subject's face. The key light solves one problem, namely being able to see your subject in the first place, but it creates another. You're probably thinking, what's that problem? Those super harsh and well-defined shadows on your subject's face. Thankfully, that's a really easy fix. The fill light, like its name implies, is there to help fill in those overly harsh shadows on your subject's face and give an overall more even look to your subject, which results in a more pleasing image. The fill light is going to be dimmer than your key light, and rightly so, because you don't want it competing with your key light in terms of brightness. Generally speaking, if your fill light is dimmer than your key light, then you have something called high key lighting. Generally speaking, if your fill light is dimmer than your key light, you get something called high key lighting. And if your fill light is almost as bright as your key light, you get something called low key lighting. You're probably wondering what high and low key lighting are to begin with, but don't worry, I'll get to that later in the video. A very cool thing about the fill light is that it doesn't have to be a light at all. A fill light can be created using something like a reflector, a bounce card, light bounced off a wall, light bounced through a shower curtain, and a whole bunch of other things. Basically, almost anything that you use to fill in the harsh shadows on your subject's face is a fill light, and it's a very versatile light as well. The fill light is usually placed at a 45-degree angle to the left or to the right of the subject, very much like the key light. Placing it at this angle gives your subject a very nice, flattering look without completely eliminating the shadows that are giving the contour, dimension, and contrast to begin with. Now that we've covered the key light and the fill light, we're going to talk about something that goes by many names. With your key light and your fill light in place, you've got a really nice start to a great lighting setup. Only there's one very noticeable problem, which is the fact that your subject now blends into your background. So to fix this, we bring in a little something called the backlight. Or was it hair light? Or was it a rim light? Either way, whatever you choose to call this light, it's all different names for the exact same light, and it does the same thing no matter what you call it. The backlight's function is not only the third point of light in your 3-point lighting setup, but it's there to create a nice halo or rim of light around your subject that helps them pop and stand out from the background so they don't just meld into it like they did before. The backlight is placed directly behind your subject and high enough so that it doesn't enter the frame, and putting it in this position not only creates that nice halo of light that I mentioned before, but it adds a nice bit of finishing depth and contrast to your subject. And it also completes the 3-point lighting setup. So far, we've learned about the key light, the fill light, and the hair light, which is all part of the 3-point lighting setup. But briefly, I'm going to talk about something called 4-point lighting. Now that we've talked about 3-point lighting, we're going to briefly talk about 4-point lighting. Don't worry, it's not that complicated. It's basically just 3-point lighting with a 4th light. The 4th light in a 4-point lighting setup is there to illuminate the background and to draw attention to certain elements within the background. The 4th light can also function as a light that covers up shadows created by other lights within the set, and it can also draw your eye to certain elements within the background and add a greater sense of depth. To use the 4th light effectively, all you gotta do is take it, put it in your background, and put it up high enough so that it doesn't enter the frame, and point it toward whatever you want it to light. You can also put the light low to the ground so that it doesn't enter the frame, and it will still look really good. Before we wrap up today's video, I want to touch briefly on the high and low-key lighting concepts that I mentioned earlier. Low-key lighting is basically when your key light is roughly around 8 times brighter than your fill light. Using this lighting ratio creates a sense of moodiness, atmosphere, and overall mysteriousness to your shot. And you see it a lot in action films, mysteries, thrillers, horror movies, and any film that wants to create a very moody and atmospheric and sometimes even dark image. High key lighting, on the other hand, is when your key light is roughly 2 times brighter than your fill light. Using this ratio creates a very nice, soft, very flattering look for your shot, and it creates a very upbeat, positive, and even optimistic look, as well as giving everything a very nice, even look. High key lighting also helps hide imperfections and blemishes on your subject's face, and you see this a lot in family films, comedies, and generally films where they want to portray a more upbeat and, well, positive atmosphere. I know I said I was going to wrap up before, but I really got to share these awesome tips to help you make the most of your 3-point lighting setup. The first tip is to think about your light's motivation. A light's motivation is an unnecessarily fancy way of saying that you really need to think about the kind of light that you're trying to reproduce on your set. Are you trying to create a nice, bright, sunny day? Or are you trying to light a nighttime scene? Maybe you're trying to light a nice, dark, cloudy, and stormy day. Or maybe you're trying to create something a little less natural, like a nightclub or something in a ballroom. Regardless of what kind of scene you're trying to light, thinking about where your light is coming from and all the light sources in your shot will not only help you pinpoint and adjust your lighting setup accordingly, but it will help you make adjustments that will make the overall shot look a whole lot better. The second tip is really all about your light and the size and distance it is from your subject. Generally speaking, if a light source is smaller than your subject, then the shadows are going to be much harsher and very well defined. And on the other hand, the bigger your light source is, comparatively speaking to your subject, then the less well defined and far less harsh your shadows are going to be. Also, the closer your light is to your subject, the bigger it's going to appear on your subject, and the farther away it is, the smaller it's going to appear. So in other words, if you have your light closer to your subject, the shadows are going to be a little bit less defined, whereas if you put it farther away, the shadows are going to be more defined because, well, math and physics and that kind of thing. But basically, keep in mind, light farther away, harsh shadows. Light closer, not so harsh shadows. Lastly, I would recommend testing your light setup before you roll a single second of footage, so that way you don't have to spend time readjusting each shot after every take. And don't forget to experiment with a 3 and 4 point lighting setup, because you never know, you might come up with something cool. That's going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed the lesson today, then go down below and leave one of these. And if you want to continue to grow your filmmaking knowledge, then consider subscribing down below and clicking that bell icon so that way you don't miss a video from the studio. And don't forget to comment which tip was most helpful for you. I'm going to head on out of here since I have quite a bit of gear to put away, but until next time, stay awesome.